Hi everyone, I'm so happy that you're here to join me for the Way of the Animal podcast. So for today's podcast, Alastair is with me again, and we thought we'd talk about, we just come back from being on holiday. And our holiday, because we're because we're exploring a new country that we're living in, we like to pack up the dogs and our rooftop tent and go exploring and seeing new places. And it was very interesting as we were traveling, like feeling the energy of the different places, how they felt, how they made us feel, and I don't know, we had some interesting conversations on the road, so we thought we'd bring them home and talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. We always seem to have interesting conversations when we travel. I think there's something about the whole traveling, journeying, walking that gets your mind moving. But one of the things I just thought was quite interesting was when we lived back in Scotland, we did less touring around than we do now that we live in Canada, and we saw less of Scotland. And realistically, the amount of distance that we travel when we go touring around in Canada, we could have seen all of Scotland in 2 weeks quite happily, but we never did.
We could have seen Scotland about 6 times the amount of distance we travelled this trip.
But for some reason, we've been like, yeah, we're the touristy. We're going to go and see all these places. It's funny we didn't do that in Scotland.
No, and we always said we wanted to see more of Scotland, and then it never happened. And it was that way, we didn't prioritise time off.
No, it was too much work and not enough time off.
Yeah.
Fortunately, our balance is slightly better.
Yeah, well, we're working on it. And yeah, this 2 weeks has been absolutely amazing.
It has been. It's a bit crazy when you think about our 2-week travel, because just describe our setup.
Okay, so we have our pickup truck, which has a cap on the back that we then have mounted on top of that, a rooftop tent. And then we also have an awning that we can pull out that you attach like a full room to. So if the weather's rubbish or the bugs are bad, we've got somewhere we can sit inside if we need to. And then, we just have everything we need in boxes and our 7 dogs.
I love how you just gloss over it. And our 7 dogs.
Yeah, well, they get to come adventuring too.
They do.
It's part of the trip. Sometimes it makes the trip a little bit more complicated, and and we can't, but it's quite good because it restricts the amount we pack because we need to make sure we've got room for the 7 dogs. So
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. And we decided this time we were going to go to the coast because we moved to Canada 2 years ago and haven't seen the sea since.
And for you, living on an island, growing up on an island, it's a big thing not to see the sea. But the same, I've always been close to it as well. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of hard not to in Scotland. Even if you're in the middle of Scotland, it doesn't take you long to get to the sea.
You're only a couple of hours away.
Yeah. So it was interesting, like, because as we went towards the sea, the scenery changed. And one of the things we quite often say is, oh, it's just like Scotland, only bigger.
I think that's definitely the thing. And I always find it funny because you get a lot of Canadians, oh, you're from Scotland. Oh, Scotland's so beautiful. And Scotland is beautiful. I'm not denying that. But Canada is equally as beautiful, just on a larger scale and with more diversity.
Yeah. And it's just, but it was bits we were going along the road. We're like, it just looks like Scotland. This could be, and then we'd name a place that it made us think of, you know. But it's something about it you have to remind yourself is like things are way bigger. Like the mountains are incredibly big. The distance you can see is way far. Like you're probably looking across Scotland sometimes. Yeah. You know, at things. It's like the scale is. I can't even describe it with words.
It is. It's just everything is so much grander. It's so much grander, but then because everything is big, proportionally it doesn't look as big.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah. No, it was amazing, an amazing scenery. And it is interesting what you said about the energy and the feeling of a place, because I think that's something probably that a lot of people are aware of, but not aware of. Like they feel it, but they don't know what it is or don't understand it. And we like to do a lot of our camping, especially with 7 dogs. A lot of our stops are on Forest Service roads, out of the way, little hidden places that's just ours. But even in that, you find some places and you're like, well, we stop here. And you sort of get out and you're like, oh, no, I don't like it here. And there's no reason.
Well, there clearly is a reason, but it's like a more, you're connected to that hunter-gatherer side of you, that energy reading side of you that goes, nope, this is not the place to stop.
More primal something about it. It's just like, ooh, don't like this place.
Yeah.
Some places give you the willies.
Well, we turned up at because it's in Canada, there's recreation sites, which are generally user-maintained, and they have like pit toilets and then picnic benches with a little fire pit, and you can just
and they're fantastic, and the rest of the world should do the same.
Yes, they're absolutely brilliant. Well, there's space out here to do them as well, but they're all over the place. And so we turned up to one that we'd seen in someone's YouTube video, because we were doing research before we left. We were watching people's YouTube video traveling the area, because it's quite good for finding good places to stay. And we stopped, we pulled up, it was kind of busier than we'd like, and we got out, and actually within 5 minutes of being out, we took the dog for a little wander because we'd been traveling for a while, so they needed to come out. And my relax reminder went off my watch, which meant like I was highly stressed, and it just didn't feel right. It was like really tense. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was from the other people or just the area itself or what it was, but because we stopped some places where there are other people and it's completely relaxed, and we like relaxed.
Yeah.
We like quiet.
So, I mean, and it made me laugh because we packed up. We fed the dogs because they'd been traveling. So they had a little toilet walk. They had their dinner, and then we packed them back in the truck and went further down the Forest Service road, and found a place that was barely room for us to put the rooftop tent out on a little pull out. Great view.
Oh yeah, fantastic
view, because we'd climbed up. So we were on the river at the first place, but we actually climbed up and we were just looking down on the river. And there was an incredible amount of bear poo around.
There was tons. There's more bear poo than I've ever seen in one place.
Yeah. So, but what was funny was we stayed there, and we felt more comfortable staying there. There was so much evidence of bears than down by the river with the people.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that. And it's interesting too, because we do like those out of the way places, and I think, like, for me, it's definitely a big part of it is the adventuring into the wilderness type feeling that you get from going down some of these Forest Service roads that maybe you don't get a lot of use. But I know it's something that you struggle a little bit with.
It can make me a little bit nervous. Fully aware that when you go off the beaten track, you tend to don't have signal. So if anything, it's like that thing in the back of my head. Anything goes wrong, you know. There's
a lot of places here that you're on the highway and you have no signal.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though. On the highway, people are likely to pass at some stage, but, you know, where we go isn't. And I think, you know, one of the things we'll probably do is get a satellite Garmin thing so that we can text for help if we need it. But I think, like, that's the fear, is sort of getting stuck, breaking down, something going wrong. But, you know, it's never happened, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think, in a way, I'm getting more comfortable with it.
Yes.
Like, I'm getting used to it. I think it's that whole thing, in Scotland, you're never really far from anywhere.
Yeah, in Scotland, let's face it, you could probably walk to somewhere from almost anywhere in Scotland quite easily.
It's very easy to get very remote very quickly in Canada.
Which I really like.
Yeah. But I mean, and it's great because, you know, most camp spots that we went to were just random roads.
Middle of nowhere.
Yep. And, you know, each one was different.
Yeah.
And, you know, we sort of went through different phases in the travelling. So to begin with, we were very steady. We went so far from home, and then actually stayed 2 days in one place, and 1 day, 2 nights, and just came down from getting all the packing done, and it was raining that first day, so it was great. We just played games in the tent and just relaxed, read our books. It was
very nice, and that there's something certainly for me, because we live on the ranch where we work, and there's something for me that even on a day off, sitting on the ranch, I don't disconnect from work, whereas just go a couple hours down the road and it's much easier to disconnect. So I really appreciated the just taking a bit of time and then stopping, not doing anything. Like there was nothing that needed to be done, and it was just stop. And that really helped me get a good start to the holiday.
Yeah, it was great. We were you'd found some narrow, overgrown road up to an old fire lookout, so we had it wasn't a great view because of the low cloud, but it was still spectacular in its own way. There was halfway up the road, it was starting to get washed out, and it was tighter than the truck was wide, but we made it to the top, and we made it back down again and home, and it was fine. But there was halfway I was like, this might be a mistake. I'll just keep pushing on. It'll be fine. Well, at that stage, we hadn't seen anywhere. You would have had to reverse it all the way down. You couldn't even turn. But then it was the first point where I was like, you can turn here if you need to. That's good to know.
Yeah, it was quite regular. You could turn around here if you wanted to. You could turn around here if you wanted to.
It was more just knowing, but yeah. And then, we moved on to the next place, and we stopped in a town in Smithers, and it was a lovely town.
It was a lovely town.
I mean, it helped that we found a great cafe that did good coffee
food.
Really good food. And it was just a really nice place to wander about. Had a good feel.
Yeah, there's something about that. There's something about certain places have a good feel, and certain places, it's not even that they have a bad feel, they just don't have the right feel. And I'm sure the feel is different for different people. Yeah,
it's like, it's built on your perspective and what you need or feel you want, what you enjoy. So for some people, maybe Smithers was too quiet.
Maybe.
And so they didn't feel comfortable there because it was a quieter town. I mean, for us, it felt quite busy, but it really is a quieter town.
It was very busy, but in a very relaxed way. You didn't feel like anyone was rushing, and it was just, it was a nice energy. Yeah.
Well, I felt like as well that cafe we went to, which is always a good sign of a good cafe, there was a lot of locals.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's always a good sign.
If the locals are using it, it's a good cafe.
Yeah.
It was busy in the cafe even, but that was all, it seemed to be mainly locals. You could tell because they'd walk back they had their dogs out, the benches out. We didn't take the dogs out. We were just enjoying the peace of no dogs for a minute. But it was just, it had that feel.
Yes.
And it was amazing as well because they had this town, and then you looked up and the backdrop was amazing mountains.
They were phenomenal, and the colours in the mountains, and it was amazing.
And we tend to not plan ahead where we're staying for the night, like you said.
Again, that's the adventure.
But while we had signal in the town, we had a quick look at sort of locations that we could go and check out, Forest Service Road. So we went and looked at one that was at a trailhead, a recreation site.
Yes, that was for the two waterfalls.
Yeah, we walked up the waterfalls and saw them, but it was not the place to stay. It was very busy. There was lots of people coming to see the waterfalls. So
yeah, a lot of traffic.
You'd found another one by a lake. Well, let's try this one. And we are fully aware if the good recreation sites that are quite close to town are generally quite busy and used by the town folk. So we didn't know, and it was stunning.
It was, even before we got there, because it was a decent distance down a gravel road, but you're passing people and they're waving to you. And it's something...
It's like being at home for me.
It is, because that's it. Something about being in Scotland in the communities we grew up in was that you waved to everyone. You didn't always know who it was, but you still waved to them.
It's like you acknowledged that they're there.
It was just like, hey. Yeah. And, I think it's the first time I've experienced that out in Canada, and it was really nice. So it was very welcoming, and there was a cool house that looked like a shoe.
Yes, and I never got a picture of it.
Oh.
No.
We'll have to go back. But and then down to the lake. It's for us, it's always quite a good sign when it's a little bit rough or steep or something like that, because then a lot of the bigger setups can't get in.
Yeah, because that's the funniest thing. When you say you're going camping in Canada, most people have like what we call in the UK caravans, or RVs,
or buses that they tow a full-size pickup truck behind. What the?
That was so funny. Because we were in Hazelton, and there was a museum place. I said, "Oh, well, that's meant to be really interesting to look at." And Alice was like, "We're not going there. It's full of buses." I was like, "Okay, yeah, it's really busy. We'll not go there." And then when we got back onto the main road, and I was like, a RV towing a car went past us that looks just like a bus. I was like, perhaps it was just full of RVs. And
it could well have been, because we were kind of off season and stuff.
Yeah.
I just had this idea of busloads of people. No. I remember that from back home.
There's probably only like 2 people per quotation bus. Yeah.
It's crazy.
But that was funny. But yeah, back to where we were. It was a real steep decline into the lake.
Yeah.
Which,
and there's nothing wrong with the big setups, but then you get more families, you get more kids. Nothing against kids,
but they tend to use actual pay-for campgrounds, I think, because you can't just park that kind of setup anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so then we went down, and there was someone out with their boat, I think.
They were out in a kayak.
Oh, out in a kayak.
There was a couple out in a kayak.
Yeah, and it was nice, and again, everyone waving and smiling and friendly, and you couldn't see it when we parked up because you were kind of in the forest and right down against the lake. Nice, clear lake. There was a dock. There was a floating pontoon a little bit further out from the dock that you could swim out to or paddle out to on the paddle boards. But when you got out into the middle of the lake and you turned around and looked back towards where we'd camped, you had this huge rocky ridge of mountains right behind. It was, for me, like Canada picture postcard is trees, a kind of gravelly road, a big lake, and huge mountains.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we found there.
Because we could see from our campsite like some mountains, and they were just kind of more normal Canadian mountains.
More rolling.
Yeah. And I think we got there quite late and we were quite tired. So we did we go out in the lake that night?
Well, I didn't go out in the lake that night. No, we didn't go out in the lake at all.
Because then I think it was a beautiful morning, and I threw the drone up to take some footage. And it was just as I was like filming all the other bits, and then I just panned round, and there was a rocky ridge. I was like, oh, I can't wait to get out in the lake now. Kind of spoiled it for myself. I should have gone out in the lake first and seen it, but never mind.
But still, it was amazing to see from on the lake.
Yeah.
And then I burst my paddleboard.
Yeah, Alastair burst his paddleboard. He was sad. I was sad for him. So I think we spent a day there. So another 2 nights, 1 day, because it was just beautiful. And we wanted to spend some time in the lake. So we went swimming. I went out on the paddleboard. I invited you to come on my paddleboard, but you went swimming instead. And it was just beautiful. And there was there was a few day users that would come and they would bring their boats and whatever, but you'd always get a lovely wave from them, and just it was well maintained. There wasn't rubbish everywhere, because sometimes you can get to these recreation sites and people haven't cleaned up after themselves, and it's disgusting. But it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
It was, for the whole trip, it's probably the highlight of the whole trip, that place. And it's great because it's not that far from home, so we could go there for the weekend or something. Yeah.
Then we had to go back into Smithers to get, well, of course we had to visit our cafe and get, a lovely breakfast and a good coffee, but we had to look for paddleboard patches.
They were hard to find. It took a couple of tries, but we did find a selection of things.
Yeah, we bought a selection of things to see what would work. And then, we pushed west to the coast.
We didn't quite make it all the way to Prince Rupert that night, but we made it pretty close. Yeah. And is that where we stayed with all the bear poo? Yep. That was where we stayed with all the bear poo, and then on to Prince Rupert. Yeah. Which is kind of a big northern coastal town. I mean, it's that area, it's the biggest thing around.
Yeah. It's like in the main port town, you can take a ship, a
cruise
ferry.
Ship.
Well,
a ferry,
you take a ferry from Vancouver to Prince Rupert.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite a normal thing to do. I think it takes 18 hours or something.
And there's a train that runs from Prince George to Prince Rupert.
Yeah, which is meant to be, obviously, if you're not driving, spectacular train.
Yeah,
route,
amazing views and things.
And that's just randomly come out of that as a different thing in Canada, is train tracks are not fenced.
Yes.
Or in any way. And when we were coming into Prince Rupert, there was literally road, probably about a metre, and then the railway tracks.
It was a little bit more than a metre, but yeah.
A few metres. But it was. The railway tracks were literally right next to the road. No fence, no barriers, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you could accidentally go wide in your corner and end up, well, you'd have to climb up the gravel on, because obviously the railway tracks are a little bit higher, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, you could have just driven straight onto them.
Yeah. And of course it was raining. We went to the
it
coast.
was raining when we went to the coast.
But that was perfect for us, because one of the things that when we want to explore a town is I don't want the dogs to get too hot.
Yes.
So it was raining. They were going to stay nice and cool, and we could be exploring without having to nip back and check on them and things. So.
Yeah.
But sort of getting to the more important side of what I felt when we were going into Prince Rupert, because obviously first time getting back to the coast, I wound down the window and smell the sea, and it was just brought me home. And I'm a bit tearful now. It was, for me, it was quite surprising how homesick it made me feel.
Yeah.
But it was more homesick for my family than the
location.
actual place of home. It was just like, of the smell kind of just took me home and made me really miss my family. So,
do you think it made you miss them more because they're coming in a couple of weeks?
Well, I think that helped, that knowing that they're coming in a couple of weeks. Like, I think that
maybe it would have been worse if they weren't coming.
Yeah, if I knew I wasn't seeing them, I think that would have been
interesting
worse.
How the smell triggered the memories, which triggered the...
I mean, I missed them all the time, but it hit really hard. And I don't know if they noticed, but I messaged them all day with pictures and videos and talking about what we were doing all day.
Yeah. And what was the town like?
It was really weird. It was so friendly.
It was very friendly.
Random strangers, you'd be passing the street, and it wasn't just a hi, morning, which you do get in Canada. I've noticed, you'll quite often, you'll pass someone, morning, hi, afternoon, whatever. But there was actually like, I specifically remember a guy going, hi, how are you today? That sort of thing. And that was just passing on the street. I wasn't in his store or, a cafe worker or, a store assistant, whatever. It was just a random stranger in the street.
Yeah, it was very, very friendly. Very friendly town.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
Yeah. And I mean, it was mobbed because we'd come on a cruise ship day, which we laughed at because it happens at home in Tobermory and the Isle of Mull as the cruise ships come in, and the town is mobbed for the day, but everyone embraces it because that's how they make their money is the cruise ship coming in. So outside all the stores was, welcome cruise ship people, come in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, Prince Rupert, it was nice to get to the coast, and it was a pretty town, it was a friendly town. It didn't have that feel.
No, it was too big, I think. I don't know.
No, because Smithers, I think, is bigger. We'd need to Google this.
Okay.
But so, like, Smithers had the feel that it felt like I could live in Smithers. I don't think I'd want to live in Prince Rupert. And there was nothing wrong with it. There was just... there wasn't that extra little something.
No, it wasn't as relaxed. It was busy, but it was more, it was just a different feel.
Yeah. And I'm like thinking back on it, I'm like trying to put a word to the feel. It's like, I almost wanted to say oppressive there, but it wasn't quite oppressive. It was just like, it wasn't relaxed.
No.
It wasn't open. It felt closed in. Now, the weather
It was
wasn't
raining. It was absolutely
It was
pouring
raining.
down.
But our next stop in Stuart
Was different. Yeah.
was closed in and raining, and it was a completely different feel.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It was a beautiful little town, but we didn't feel the need to stay nearby, go back.
No, we didn't go back. Just
other
one day.
than enjoying the seafood, which obviously I've missed
Really
greatly.
good. Yeah.
It was just like, okay, we've done that, and we were able to find a bit, because it's just like, it's not like the coast of Scotland where you can get down to the sea very easily either.
Yeah, there wasn't, or maybe we just didn't find it.
Yeah,
we didn't explore Prince Rupert a lot.
No, but I don't know,
which I think says everything about
if there's
our
much to
feeling of it.
explore. I mean, so we managed to get the dogs down to a little bit of sea, and they could paddle in the sea, and it was funny watching their faces as they realised it was seawater. And obviously the new pup had no idea what seawater was, so I said, make sure we give him a drink of water before he goes down there, because he'll try and drink the sea.
Yeah.
Which, you don't want them doing too much of. But it was funny seeing their faces, especially the old boy. He was just like, I'm standing in water, yeah. Wait, this feels different. There was sort of
there was definitely a recognition in his face when he was like, oh, I remember what this is.
Yeah.
Which is nice for him, because he loves water.
Yeah. And he's always loved swimming in the sea and things.
Yeah.
So he's 15. So he's a little boy. But he did really well with the travelling.
He did really well with the travelling.
I think he enjoyed the variation of places.
Yeah. Got to see a lot without having to walk a lot.
Yes. And we actually went to see the cannery outside town as well.
Yeah.
That
was interesting.
That was very interesting. Where they used to can all the salmon.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of history there through
recent history.
Yeah. This is the thing, is the history in Canada, other than when you're getting into the native people, is very recent.
It's like 100 years or so. Yeah.
And in Scotland, it's quite a contrast for us. So it's almost like, show me in 200 years.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, it was the cannery was interesting to see how they used to do things and all the machines they had running, and yeah, that was good.
And then we headed back out again. Trying to think where we went next.
Well,
somewhere. We found the Maroon Mountain.
Oh yes,
by the river.
Another Forest Service road stop by a river, which is nice. And then I took us on a detour that ended up being a bust.
Yep.
I went looking for a ghost town that had been bought by someone and then closed off and made private. And if I'd Googled a bit more, I would have known that. But
we did, on the way up to that, we saw the lava beds.
Yeah, the lava beds. That was amazing.
And a couple of beautiful waterfalls and things.
Oh, yeah, that one that was in the little glade.
Yeah.
And did you ever see Fern Gully?
No.
Okay. It was like a cartoon or something like that. I very, very vaguely remember it growing up. But like it was that sort of vibe.
Yeah, and then because we were down in Prince Rupert, we're like, we're not too far from Stuart. Now, Stuart, we'd seen, we watch a YouTuber who travels around Canada, and he actually lives like south of us in Canada, close to where we used to be. And he tends to interview the people in the towns and talks about the story of the people. I really like, because
there's a lot of YouTube overlanding sort of people about, and especially in Canada and British Columbia especially, there seems to be a lot on YouTube to see.
Or we see them.
Maybe, that's it. But his I especially like, because he really gets into the place. He'll tell you the history about the places he visits.
He's looking for the story.
He's looking for the story. Destination Adventure. Check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's very good. But yeah, so we'd seen Stuart in his videos, and
it's another coastal place.
We were quite close, and again, Prince Rupert, didn't feel a need to go back to. So we're okay. Well, let's just go to Stuart.
Yeah. And sorry,
I was going to say Stuart had that feeling.
Yeah, it was really interesting because the morning we set off, it was low cloud and sort of drizzly, very Scottish kind of weather.
Yeah.
And we couldn't see much of the mountains. You knew there were mountains there, no idea of scale.
Yeah.
We pulled. There was a glacier on the way.
Yeah.
That you could see from the road. It's on the other side of a lake, and that was just amazing to look at.
Yeah.
I stopped, and there was another person who was traveling. She stopped, and she's like, "Oh, how you
start
struck
chatting.
up a conversation." Yeah. You just love that. And we just came into Stewart, and just all the mist and low cloud, and the river was raging because they'd had quite a bit of rain the last few days, and I don't know, it felt amazing coming in.
There's definitely something very atmospheric about the low cloud and the river and the moisture. It just like
the river as well. It had like its own like mist over it as well.
All the water vapor and it was amazing.
We came in. We were it was like a late breakfast, but we found a little cafe place, which there's a couple of cafes. It took you back in time.
Oh yeah.
It was
a lot of Stewart took you back in time.
Yeah. The houses were, just old, like
older,
especially where like down on the main. I don't even know if it's the main street, but where all the cafes and a lot of the shops were. I say a lot of the shops, like there was lots of them. Where the 3 or 4 shops were.
Yeah.
And we went to different stores and had a look about. Now, the thing about Stewart is it is right on the border to Alaska.
Yep.
And Hyder, it's an old mining town. And Hyder's just on the other side of the border. And then you can go up and see another glacier, and it's absolutely amazing. But obviously, being on the border, we didn't go across because we're still waiting on paperwork and things for things. So we're just like, it's easier not to bother with that because it is actually a border crossing, especially coming back. But yeah, that's a part. But the nice thing about that is something we look forward to doing when we go back. But we were literally right on the Alaska border.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things. I don't know when we'll go back to Prince Rupert. No.
But Stewart's on the list.
To go back to.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so actually we were chatting with the lady in her little shop, and she was saying it's worth waiting to see the mountains, see if it clears.
If it clears.
So we thought, okay, we'll go out of town, find a Forest Service road for the night, and then come back.
And I think we both felt a want to stay.
Yeah, we wanted to see more. Even though there wasn't more to see. There wasn't more to see, but we wanted to see more. Yeah. That's really strange. We just wanted to go back there. It was like we didn't want to leave as quickly as we did with Prince Rupert, because we spent the same amount of time there.
Again, it's the feel.
Yeah. And we found this amazing spot in some really old trees.
Yeah. That was an amazing
And again,
spot.
The mist and the rain made it very mystical and magical. And we saw bracken, which is something we haven't seen since we left Scotland. It was just, I don't know. It was something about Stewart. Didn't want to leave when we went to leave either.
It's interesting because Stewart and Smithers were their 2 favourite towns that we visited. There were similarities, but they're wholly different. Like Stewart has that real sleepy, small scale town.
And it's just like, it's still back in time. It's it's not progressed.
The world's not caught up with it yet, which is fantastic.
Which is like, it just makes it even more special, I think.
And I think you looked, was it 500 people live in Stewart, something like that?
Yeah.
So it's not tiny by any means. I love that there's going to be someone who lives in a city who thinks 500 people, that's no one. And we're like, 500 people is quite a sizable place.
Well, we had to look as well, because the biggest town on the island I'm from, I think that's 900 people. So they're like, okay, it's smaller than that or something. Yeah. I can't remember, but it was something like that. But it was something that was interesting, because when you're traveling, you don't have a sense of place in the same way, because you're always moving from place to place. And it's sometimes you feel like you crave that sense of place.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's like, I don't know, it's something that I've been pondering as we were traveling, is that some places make you feel like you're home, and some places don't.
So that's it. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever noticed the craving a place to call home. I quite like the adventure in the open road. But what I do find myself doing is, I could stay here.
Yeah, it's just almost like a feeling like you belong.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's like it's craving that feeling of belonging, because when you're traveling, you become detached from place.
Yes, yeah, you definitely do become
like because
detached.
you like. But the weird thing was, it was very easy to become attached to a place and not want to leave it.
Yes, well, there's definitely the three places: the lake, Smithers, and Stewart. All three of those places I could have stayed.
Yeah.
But I don't think I craved a place as we were going. Like I don't, or if I did, it was subconscious.
I mean, maybe it's more with me. It's like craving stability.
Yeah.
It's like during a time where, like you don't have stability. You don't know where you're going to stay next. We've not booked certain campgrounds, so you know exactly where
We
you're
have
going.
no idea.
No.
Quite often it's late in the afternoon. We're like, where are we going to stop?
Yeah, let's try this road, So, and honestly, that's fun, but it can also, like...
The later on in the day it gets, the more stressful it gets trying to find a place, because I know you get this, or at least I get this, I want to find a special place.
Yeah, you have this, I'm like, this'll do. No, there's another one further up, we'll keep driving.
I want to find the special place.
Okay.
And realistically, you're right. This place, like any place will do, and especially because realistically we're eating, folding out the tent, sleeping, packing up the tent, and then leaving.
Well, like I said, we have the awning in the awning room, but tend to, when we're doing like travel days, we're just going from one destination to the next, it's literally just fold out the rooftop tent and feed the dogs, feed ourselves, have a nice walk, have an evening cup of tea, and then
into bed.
Go to bed, you know?
That's it. But yeah, there is something about, I want to find somewhere that feels special, right? I don't know, something.
Well, I suppose that, do you think that's a bit of a feeling safe as well?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Or are you just looking for a special place?
I think I'm just looking for a special place. There's certainly a certain amount of, I want things to be good for you.
Well, I want things to be good for you. Actually, I'm more worried about the dogs.
Yeah.
I want the dogs to be happy.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, one of the ones with the dogs is, and it's what I love about our finding places out in the bush that we can go and park up, is all our dogs are all, well, they're not even old enough because Callum's 5 months old, but they're good enough that when we get to a spot out in the middle of nowhere, we just release them. And they don't go anywhere, but they have freedom to stretch their legs, go and sniff, wander around a bit. And
that's it, they can get up and down and move about rather than, sometimes where there's people, they just have to be tied up on a lead, and then they have exercise when we exercise them. Yeah.
So I feel it's nice for them, and honestly, it's nice for us because you don't have to really think about them, just to be in the middle of nowhere and release the hounds.
And then they never go far, and are always
they
under
don't go
our
anywhere,
feet.
And they're under your feet. And, that's it.
Yeah.
But the sense of place is interesting because, where we are now, I like where we are now, but it doesn't have the same feel as a couple of stops along the way.
No. It's I don't know. It's just something to think about. I think that, I thought about it, I actually wrote about it one day. It's just, understanding why we why I feel I want a sense of place, or...
Yeah.
And why do we... Because we don't, a lot of people are nomadic, It's
But then it's like when we stopped in Prince Rupert and we were speaking to the lady in the coffee shop.
Oh, yeah.
And she was saying she was born or grew up there and had been away and came back, and for her it was the light that was there that she found special and different, and it really, I don't think she used the words, but it made her feel like home.
And it was interesting with her as well, as she was she obviously, a bit like us, likes her own space and her own time, but she'd come to the cafe particularly to be around people and sort of connecting with people.
Yeah.
And it was a very busy cafe, so she'd invited us to sit at her table because she was going to leave very shortly, and we had a wee conversation before she left. And It's just interesting.
It is interesting. But yeah, but there's definitely something about something like that. But then that's, she was from there and returned to there. And
I don't know if she was from there.
She'd been there before anyway.
Yeah. But anyway.
Whatever it was. It's like, I could imagine if you went back to Mull.
Yeah.
It would feel like home.
Oh, yeah. Well, I see pictures from my mum sends me pictures. Look, we've got sunshine today.
Yeah.
I'm like, home.
Yeah.
And it just feels, there's just a feeling.
Because you've spent such a large portion of your life there.
Yeah.
So I get that. But then why does
other places
feel like home that you've never been to before?
You must emulate that feeling. So there must be...
Because, that's the thing. Because it's the feeling. It's not the place.
No.
Because, well, maybe Stuart is a little bit like home.
No, not really. It's on the coast.
It's on
you can smell the sea. There's an estuary.
It's wet. Yeah. There's not many people
it's
there.
Wet. It's raining.
It's raining. But yeah, it's a little bit more of an analogy to home. But Smithers isn't.
No.
So it's obviously not just this feels like home.
Yeah.
It's this feels like home, but not home.
Yeah. Or is it just that it feels right,
Yeah.
If it's like an alignment with who you are, it feels right to you. It's like we were saying different places, you stop and you're like, nope, this isn't the place to stop.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. I don't think we weren't going to come up with answers about it, but I don't know. We just thought it'd be fun to talk about our trip and talk about, that sense of place came through so many times. It was worth kind of mentioning while we talked about our holiday away.
And then you're going to make a video out of it?
Yeah, I'll make a video at some stage. There's a lot of pictures and things to go through. So, well. Thanks.
Thank you.
It was fun.
When's the next holiday?
It's fun, I know. Next year, probably.
Probably.
But I get to see my family in a few weeks, so that's exciting.